What's going on, guys? VitalSyntax here, and Metro Last Light has been out for just a couple days now, and I've been playing it since release, and I'm really enjoying it, so I thought I'd bring you guys my first impression reviews. You guys might have seen my previous video that just showed off some of the amazingly good-looking graphics, but one of the first things that I looked for in this game was the optimization and the performance, because if you look back at Metro 2033, that game looked very good. And it was used by a lot of people to benchmark their graphics cards or benchmark their gaming PCs because it had a fairly low frame rate even on high-end systems. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has amazing graphics, right? A game can be poorly optimized and look pretty crappy, and it's still gonna tank your frame rate. Whereas a game like Crysis 3 can look absolutely amazing, be really well optimized, and still tank your PC. So it's kind of hard to determine between the two. And on top of that, graphics fidelity is somewhat subjective. One person might look at the graphics of a certain game and think they look better than another game, and another person that you show it to might think the opposite. But I think overall they did a very good job, at least in comparison to Metro 2033 and the optimization side. I'm running it on a GTX 680, and if you guys want to see the list of my full system specs, you can go to my channel and then click on the About tab, and it has a list, or it has a link to PC Part Picker, which is an awesome website that has a bunch of listing of all my parts, as well as you can see like graphs of what the most popular parts are and price points and stuff. It's a really cool website, but regardless, the game runs really well for me. I'm running on the highest settings. The only thing I don't have turned on is MSAA, it's SSAA, which is screen space ambient occlusion, which is very GPU intensive, and it cuts my frame rate almost in half. And honestly, I couldn't really tell a difference between it on and off. Essentially, what it's trying to do is reduce what are called jaggies, I guess, or jagged lines. Anti-aliasing is trying to smooth out those edges. But if you're playing on a 1080p screen, in my opinion, you don't really need anti-aliasing. And if you do want it, you probably want to use something like FXAA, which is much faster and has a much lower hit to performance and fairly good quality. It does not, it doesn't, blend the edges perfectly, but it does a pretty good job. And you don't have that graphics option in the game. The options weren't very plentiful. There was, your basic PC things like being able to change key bindings, being able to control mouse sensitivity, sound levels, and a couple graphics settings, but I was expecting a lot more. I mean, I always think of Metro games as kind of hardcore PC, high-end graphics game, and I was expecting a lot more options from the graphics and a lot more options just in general for PC specific controls. Like, for example, I couldn't figure out how to do toggle ADS, where you just click with your right mouse button and it toggles it instead of having to hold it down, which is what I typically use nowadays. So I had to use the hold ADS. It's not a really big issue, but it's little things like that that are annoying. And the biggest issue for me in the settings was the lack of the ability to turn off aim assist, which is turned on by default, and you actually have to go into a text file, which is in your app data folder. I'm able to put a link in the description to a website that explains how to do it, because it's kind of complicated. But you just have to go in there and find an aim assist value and change it to 0, and then set the file to read only, because it'll actually try and overwrite that file even if you change it, which is really annoying. But even more importantly than turning off aim assist is the ability to change your field of view. The field of view is stuck at a horizontal field of view of 70, which isn't horrible. I think that 50 or 60 would be horrible, but there's no way to change it, and that's a key feature that every PC game, at least first-person shooters, should have. And even worse than that is that you can't even change it with a configuration file. You can't even go in and change, a text file anywhere in the game. And I was reading up on this a little bit to try and see if there was any way of changing this setting, and it turns out that the way that they designed the game would essentially have a lot of issues with changing the field of view above 70. Like, you would be able to see through your arms, and all of the animations and first-person elements that they've designed, like your gun and your watch, gas mask, and all that type of stuff, would be really weird and out of place if you change your field of view. And that makes sense, but honestly, it's something that they should have thought of when they were designing the game. They should have made it so it was field of view friendly, so that people could change the field of view instead of being limited, which is just really stupid. And I even know, some people that will say that if you can't change a field of view, then they'll get sick from looking at a lower field of view if they're used to a higher field of view, or if they're used to a lower field of view, looking at a higher field of view, and going back and forth can kind of give you a little bit of dizziness and kind of a headache, and I have experienced that myself, actually. But anyway, enough about the PC specific settings. What about the gameplay? What about the actual game, the experience, the level design, the AI, the weapons? Well, so far I'm fairly impressed in a lot of areas, and then there's some areas that I think are lacking a bit. The first area that I thought was lacking was the guns. Almost all of the guns in the game are from Metro 2033. There might be a few new guns. I haven't finished the game, so there's probably going to be some ones that I haven't come across yet. But almost all of the guns are just duplicates of what they had in Metro 2033. They weren't updated at all. They look the exact same. They sound the exact same. They feel the exact same. And that's kind of disappointing. I would prefer games to have a new set of guns, or at least an expanded set of guns every release. But it seems like the guns and the weapons set is fairly similar to 2033. Not necessarily that they're a bad set of guns. It's just, I don't want to use the same guns over and over. Another thing that was kind of lacking is the voice acting. Now, I know that this is developed by a Russian company, and I'm sure the Russian voice acting is probably the one that has more quality to it, but the English voice acting is kind of subpar. Their accents, I don't know if they're fake, but they sound fake. And I don't know, just the emotions and the way they talk is kind of cheesy. I don't know if they necessarily had the best actors, but if you're playing it in Russian, it might be a more authentic experience. And I've heard people say, that do speak English, that you should play it in Russian anyway, just to get that whole immersion factor. But honestly, I think that's kind of stupid, because you wouldn't understand what's going on. You wouldn't really understand the plot of the story if you couldn't understand the dialogue. So I don't really understand why people think that's cool. But beyond those two kind of negatives, a lot of positive stuff has come out of this game. The level design is really, really well done. The detail is just insane. The amount of just design and work that has gone into designing these levels is just it's insane. This is like one of the most detailed worlds I've ever seen, and it's incredibly beautiful at the same time. Every place that I've gone to, whether it was above ground or in the subway system underground, is just so beautiful, and it's also incredibly horrifying at the same time. There's a lot of spiders and stuff that I've come in contact with so far, and I hate spiders. I'm a grown 21-year-old man at 6'5". I shouldn't be afraid of spiders, but those are one of the few things that really scares the shit out of me. And in this game, they're so nasty. But the enemies in general are really well designed. They're very creepy. Fairly smart AI. There's some stupid things, and I've had them walk through objects on a couple occasions. But the animations and the sound effects and the movement and the attack different variants, like for example, some of the spiders you have to fend them off with your flashlight because they're scared of the light. Then they'll expose their belly, and you can shoot them in the belly because they have a lot of armor on the top side of their body. There's a lot of variation in the actual enemies that you fight, and that's always a good thing. Now, this is my first impression review, so I don't want to go too detailed into giving it a score or going into the storyline and the characters and stuff like that. If I do want to do something like that, I'll save that for a full review. But for my first impressions, I just kind of wanted to give you guys an overview of some of the stuff that I first noticed about the game that were awesome, and some of the things that I didn't really like about the game right off the bat. And then also just give you a general recommendation, because I know a lot of people, when a game first comes out, they want to know whether or not they should buy it. And that's really the bottom line. Should I buy it or should I not buy it? And my answer to that is you should buy it if you are a single player person that likes first person shooters. This doesn't have multiplayer. It's not going to be like Battlefield or Call of Duty or anything like that. But also if you like linear games, it's not an open world game. It's not like Skyrim or Fallout or Far Cry. It's fairly linear, although there is lots of exploration and little nooks and crannies that you can go through and find, upgrades for your guns, or find military grade ammo, which is essentially the currency in the game. But I would say, for the most part, if you're into first person single player games, this is probably gonna be the top 5 of this year. And if you like Metro 2033, if you played that, then you'll definitely like this game. It's very similar in a lot of ways. And if you enjoy more, those linear first-person shooter experiences that kind of has a horror factor to it, then you'll probably like this one. Just keep in mind that if you're on the PC, you're going to have a fairly high-end system. You don't have to have a GTX Titan and a Extreme Edition CPU, but you do probably want to have a higher-end graphics card, probably at least a 570, I would say, if not higher, and or equivalent AMD cards. And I don't know if you need a higher end or CPU to play this, but I would imagine it's more of a GPU intensive game. But anyway, hopefully that can help you guys make a decision on whether or not you guys want to buy the game. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this first impression review. Feel free to give me a like or a favorite if you did, and subscribe for more Metro videos, because I'll probably do a couple more over this coming week as I continue to play through it. But thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.